Hey, what's good, guys? It's your boy Tacho here, and we're back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. So today in the bulletin board, we got the announcement for the upcoming Hall of Forms. And now, your boy already knew which units we were gonna get. They were shown in the data mine for the Brave Heroes. So this isn't really a mystery to most of us, but I do like to wait for the official announcement on these things to actually cover them. So we're going to go ahead and talk about them today, and we're just going to talk about which Forma Soul I think is the best one to pick up if you do decide to use your Forma Soul and buy it in the shop. It's not going to be for everyone, of course, because it's not a free-to-play thing. You do have to spend real money to get the Forma Soul, but I do think it is worth it in the long run. You are getting 60 orbs at a better cost price than you would from just buying orbs in the shop. So for the people that spend money to buy orbs, it's always just a better idea to pick up the Forma Soul anyway, because you're still getting the orbs, and then at that point the Forma Soul is just a throw-in. And from there you're free to just pick up any of these units, and you can deck them out with whatever skills you want. So it's going to be more cost efficient on you in terms of skill inheritance, because you don't have to waste any fodder. And it's even better now because we just got the Ivy Mangoes. So we're free to go ahead and give IVs to any of these Forma Soul units now. And that's a really big win for everybody. Previously, we were judging these Forma Soul units based on them having neutral IVs and assuming that the Tempest Trial and Grand Hero Battle options were always just going to be the best because they never had to worry about IVs in the first place. But now it's totally flipped and everything is topsy-turvy. All of the 5-star exclusive options are going to be just as efficient now as they would be had you summoned them on a banner. It's just that this time with the Forma Soul, they come decked out with all the skills you want, including any skills that they have in their base kit. So it's just a really good thing, and I think they're going to probably sell a lot more Forma Souls now than they would before, thanks to the Ivy Mangoes being a thing. So definitely some cool stuff there. So let's go ahead and discuss each one of these Forma Soul units, and I'm going to give my impressions on which ones I think are the best to go for, which ones may be the worst, and which skills you may want to pick up on these units. So we're going to start things off with Summer Micaiah. Now, I feel like she's probably the best unit on this list, without question. It's not even close, to be honest. Dawn Suzu is her base weapon, and it's super good, especially in a mode like Aether Raids. It's got effective against cavalry and effective against armor, and it also has a built-in Hardy Bearing effect, which is super clutch. You could go ahead and run the Hardy Bearing seal on one of your other units, and that way you would have two of them with Micaiah and the unit that's running the Sacred Seal. And she's also a dancing unit too, so that just applies even more pressure onto the foes if you're going to be running Micaiah on a defense setup. So she's one of the few dancing units that's actually a solid offensive threat, making her a really cool option to go for. And I would totally recommend it. I think I might actually use my Forma Soul on Micaiah as well. Mine is currently at +9. I free pulled a Micaiah on the Summer Banner rerun that they did this morning, so I was pretty happy about that. I was able to get my Summer Micaiah from +8 up to +9. So if I pick her up with the Forma Soul and merge them together, I would actually end up with a +10 Micaiah at that point. So pretty awesome stuff for me. Now, as far as what skills I think you should pick up on Micaiah, as far as the weapon goes, nothing's really going to compete with Dawn Suzu, but you do have a couple of options. Rower Fox is nice because it's really rare, and it's not too shabby of a weapon, and I think Conch Bouquet is also pretty good. It's easy to get because you can get it from Summer Lawrence, but the effect that it grants is pretty solid for Micaiah, so I think it's something worth looking into. Also, this Micaiah has really good res, but not the best defense, so skills that can raise her defense and raise her attack, I think are going to be the best for applying the most pressure. So Sturdy Impact should be a no-brainer there. It's going to raise her attack and defense, and then it's going to negate the foe's follow-up attack. So despite her having not the best of speed stats, it's not really going to matter if she initiates combat. So definitely, probably the best choice, I would say, if you want her to be offensive. But if you want to play her defensively, then you do have other options too. Close Foil, I think, is pretty good. Also distant defense 4 and double stance level 3s. It's pretty much a matter of which one do you think is going to work the best. So defensive skills on her are very much a toss-up, but you do have some pretty good options there. Now her, of course, being an infantry option, she can use lull skills. So I think lull, attack, and res is probably the way to go if you want her to deal the most damage. But Special Spiral could be a really good option too. And because she has built-in Hardy Bearing on the weapon with Dawn Suzu, you'd be free to run whatever Sacred Seal you want. Possibly Heavy Blade, so you could just spam AoE specials with her in a similar way to Ophelia. I think that would be a pretty good option as well. And defensively, you could go for Null Sea Disrupt or Mystic Boost. Null Sea Disrupt is pretty clutch because she has effective against cavalry on her weapon, and then she has a really good base res. So if you use her against cav line teams, she could end up wrecking them pretty bad. Essentially getting one-shots on them and not being prevented from counterattacking. So could be a good option. Mystic Boost could be pretty good too if you just want to negate Wrathful Staff and take care of those staff units at your own pace. Either one works fine. And finally, for the C skills, I think it's a toss-up between either Joint Drive Attack or Times Pulse. Both of them are going to be really good for offense. And it depends on if you want her to just spam specials or go in with her base attack and try to deal damage that way. So a very powerful unit. Definitely a very versatile one as well. Being able to dance and possibly being a crazy offensive threat in her own right as well. I think this Micaiah is definitely the best choice to go for. Now moving on to who I think is probably the second best choice, we have the Halloween Mia. Now what's good about her is that she's a flying staff unit, and as we see with Brave Camilla, that's just really good. Flying staff units, I think, are arguably the best movement class for staffs to have. You could argue that Veronica and all the other cavalry staff units are better, but being able to avoid obstacles is super good, especially in Aether Raids and the new arena maps. So if you're playing her in Arena Assault, playing her in Aether Raids or wherever, flying mobility along with the Razzle Dazzle combo, I think, is going to be very powerful. So Mia is definitely a good choice. You can also actually get 2 merges on her right now from the Orb special packs that they have. I believe it's like $27 and you get 50 orbs, and then you get a copy of Mia and like 200 divine codes if I'm not mistaken. So for the pay-to-play players out there that may not mind spending money on that, I guess that is something to consider. So a merge is definitely possible for this Mia, and you would be able to remove her Bane and just have the good boon at that point if you were to spend one of the Ivy Mangoes on her. But as far as building Mia goes, she's a staff unit, so you probably want to go for the Razzle Dazzle combo. Unfortunately, in her base kit, she does not come with Dazzling or Wrathful Staff, so that's definitely something you're going to want to pick up in the Hall of Forms. Either one works fine because all of the staffs were lucky enough to be able to refine with either Wrathful Staff or Dazzling Staff, so that is pretty good. For the weapon, you may as well just go with one of the seasonal staffs, like Grand Scratcher or Candlelight. She already comes with Witchy Wand Plus, which is very good, so you may want to just keep on using that. But Grand Scratcher is pretty clutch if you wanted to run her for an Infantry Pulse setup. And the cool thing about Grand Scratcher is that it's not limited to just infantry class movement. So she's capable of granting -1 special cooldown to any unit on your team that has the highest attack at the start of the turn. And if you have a tie on your team for some reason, then both of the units would get the -1 cooldown count, which is pretty awesome, to be honest. And not being infantry locked, of course, is going to be very good with that. There's a ton of units that need to get special cooldown charging to get started, like Legendary Edelgard, for example, or Ares as well, and just a ton of other units that would really enjoy having that -1 cooldown at the start of the turn. So I feel like Grand Scratcher is a really good option to go for. Candlelight could be pretty good as well. It's basically the same thing as Kemp's weapon, where it's going to prevent all of the foes from doing a counterattack after you attack them. So if Mia attacks first and then one of your other guys goes in, then that unit is going to be treated as having either a Fire Sweep or a Dazzling Staff effect in combat, which is pretty cool. So you may want to pick up Candlelight if you want to do something like that. Now, unfortunately, these staff units are very starved in terms of ace skills. There's not too many that they can actually inherit, but the push 4 and the solo 4 skills are all fair game, and I think those are probably going to be the way to go. And in the C slot, you're free to run either Joint Drive Attack or Joint Drive Speed. Pretty much just pick whichever one you want, if you want to do more damage or have a better chance to do a double attack on the foes. Now, one cool thing though to note about this Mia, she should be able to inherit the Rhine skills, so Attack and Speed Rhine 3. I don't think that's going to be available in this round of Hall of Forms though, so that is a little unfortunate. It would have been a really awesome skill for her to get, and it would actually outshine both of the Joint Drive skills. But either way, Joint Drive Attack, Joint Drive Speed, either one is going to work out just fine, so don't worry too much about that. Okay, next up, believe it or not, we have Oliver, who I think is not actually the worst unit that you can pick up here. He is a free-to-play Tempest Trial option, so unlike all the other units on this list, he is free-to-play mergeable. All these other units are also seasonal locked, so it's going to be very hard to pick up merges on these units. So Oliver definitely has the edge in that regard. And he does have some pretty cool weapon options too, like Tannin Bit for example, which is going to grant him a +5 heal after every attack that he does, regardless of him dealing 0 damage or not. So it could be a pretty clutch weapon if you wanted to build him with a sustain type of build. Spooky Sensor is not a bad option either. It's basically just Fury 3 built into a tome. There are some other like blue tome options you could go with, but most of them require your unit to actually have speed for it to work. So Oliver, I mean, just look at this guy. He ain't going anywhere fast. So I don't think you want to run any of the skills that would require speed on him. Pretty much just raise his bulk as much as possible and have him go to town there. This guy knows a thing or two about bulk. Let me tell you about that. So bulky Oliver, definitely a pretty cool way to build him. Close foil and sturdy impact, just like we said with the Summer Micaiah. He's already got a really good res stat, so anything that builds up his attack and defense is going to be what you want to go for. Lull attack and res, I think, is the definitive beast skill for him. It's going to raise his bulk and damage even more, and there's really not too many other options you could go with. I guess Special Spiral could work, but there's really not that many specials that this guy would want to be spamming anyway. So I think you do get a little bit more bang for your buck with Lull attack and res. And finally, in the C skill, surprise surprise, Joint Drive Attack is one of my recommendations, or Pulse Smoke 3 as well. Pulse Smoke more so if you want him to be a bait option and have him shut down like infantry pulse setups or something like that. So that could totally work out. And low-key, I kind of want to build Oliver, to be honest. Like, maybe instead of Micaiah, I might want to pick up this guy just for the memes, because of course, Oliver is just a walking meme. We all love this guy so much, just because of that artwork and his admiration of beauty, of course. So if you are a man of culture, you will pick up Oliver with the Forma Soul and make him the top percentage of Oliver that you can. But real talk though, he is a meme, so just be aware of that. And finally, in last place, I think we have the Dancing Elincia. Yeah, believe it or not, Oliver is actually better than someone for once. And as much as I love Elincia as a character, and as much as I love Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance, this Dancing Elincia really doesn't offer all that much. Her stat line kinda sucks. Like, defense and res are garbo on her. Her speed is really mid, like, it's not good enough to win too many speed matchups nowadays. And her attack is just abysmal. She doesn't even have good HP either, so you can't run, like, common dancer skills like maybe the Pulse Ties, or Infantry Pulse, or Sudden Panic, or things like that. So there's really not much you can do with this Elincia that any of the other dancing units wouldn't be able to do, but better. So that is unfortunate. But maybe Elincia is your favorite character and you would like to pick her up. So these are just some of the skills I think you may want to go for. Kitty Paddle Plus is still one of the rarest daggers you can get, and it's got effective against Tome, which is pretty awesome. That is not locked to movement type either. It's just, as long as the foes have a Tome, this weapon is going to deal effective damage to them. The only bad thing is that it has low might and it can't be refined. I have no idea why. I mean, there's no way a refined kitty paddle would actually break the game in any way. So I don't know why they didn't want to refine it, but it is what it is. Still a pretty cool weapon and a very rare one as well. Since we're going to be killing off tome units with that, Mirror Impact is probably the way to go. Just raise her res a bit and also stop the foes from doing a follow-up attack. It's probably going to catch wreck on a unit like Brunya that people like to run in their Aether Raids offense teams. Unless, of course, Brunya has null follow-up, then at that point, Elincia is pretty much just boned. But for any Brunyas not running that, like some of them like to run lull, attack, and speed instead, or lull, speed, and res, or something like that, then this Elincia could actually end up clapping Brunya pretty bad. She may not be able to get the one-shot with Kitty Paddle, but she can certainly survive the counterattack and then possibly queue up some Wings of Mercy shenanigans as well. So that could be pretty clutch. Otherwise, though, it's very much more of the same. Lull skill as her B slot and then joint drive attack. It's just all the skills that work. So maybe not the most original, but definitely the best as far as optimizations go. Your other option would be to go with Broadleaf Fan and have her just gain a ton of extra damage from the foe's debuffs. But there's so many better Broadleaf Fan options than her, I don't really recommend it. Also, she's a colored dagger unit as well, so she's going to have color disadvantage against red type units, making it harder for her to secure the one-hit KOs, unlike those colorless dagger type units that don't really have too many bad matchups. So she's not really the best user of Broadleaf Fan, but in terms of damage, it is probably her best option. And otherwise, it's just more of the same skills that you see typically. Special Spiral, Times Pulse, Attack and Speed Push 4. Not really original, but definitely efficient, so probably what you would want to go for on a build like this. But that about wraps us up for all of the Hall of Forms units. And definitely let me know in the comments section, guys, which one of these units do you think you want to pick up? And which one of these units do you actually think is the best choice for the Forma Soul? I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts on that. But as always, this is your boy Tacho signing out. So take care, fellas, and I will catch you again on the flip side.